Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 165. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture, with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the show, liked, commented, left reviews. All your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. Also, want to take this time to thank our sponsors. Family owned and operated since 1976, Samson Equipment has been specializing in full turnkey weight room buildouts from planning to installation. Based in Las Cruces, New Mexico, Samson provides professional weight room solutions for those looking to lead the way in advancing our strength and conditioning profession. Coaches relied on Samson as their top resource for all their weight room renovations because they provide the finest materials and design, product customization, and the most reputable customer service in the business. So if you're in the market for elite level strength equipment, weight room renovations, or upgrades, be sure to check out samsonequipment.com to see how Samson has been delivering clients a long-lasting yet affordable product for over 4 decades. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus is trusted by the top strength sport athletes and lifters in the world. Cerberus's wide range of products are made by athletes for athletes, truly living up to its moniker, made by the strong for the strong. From training gear, supplements, lifting straps, sandbags, knee sleeves, and much more, Cerberus Strength provides the highest quality strength products on the market, designed and manufactured to help you defeat, destroy, and devour your competition. So if you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to use promo code strength_game at checkout to receive 10% off your next order at cerberusstrength.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. Founded in 1995, Sport Kilt is the very first company to begin making casual kilts in the USA. Taking the traditional kilt concept, they crafted a casual kilt using modern materials that is perfect for Highland athletes and casual kilt aficionados alike. Sport Kilt offers an option for people looking for a tartan plaid kilt that is less expensive, comfortable, lighter, and durable, yet machine washable. So make the ultimate Celtic statement by checking out the full selection of kilts and stylish kilt accessories at sportkilt.com and be sure to use promo code TSG to save at checkout. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Jake Patten. Jake is the director of strength conditioning overseeing the Fairfax County Fire and Police Departments. Patten has been with the Fire and Rescue Department for over 9 years, first joining in 2016 and overseeing the Fairfax County Police Department's wellness and fitness program for over 4 years now. He arrives at his current position after serving as the assistant fitness director in the private sector at Sport and Health from 2015 to 2016. He began his coaching career in the collegiate setting, first as an assistant strength conditioning coach at Duke University from 2008 to 2010. He then joined the staff at American University in a similar role in 2010 before quickly being promoted to the head strength conditioning coach at the end of his first season. Patten spent the next 3 seasons at American before moving on to James Madison University, where he served as the associate director of strength conditioning for the Dukes from 2013 to 2015. At JMU, he worked with the football program in addition to overseeing both women's lacrosse and field hockey. A former college football player at Virginia Tech, Patten worked both strong safety and special teams from 2003 to 2006 and went on to be an undrafted free agent with the San Francisco 49ers. Following his football career, Patten continues to stay active himself in the weight room. Currently, his training centers on hybrid conjugate, muscle endurance, and lots of challenge WODs with his tactical athletes. Working around previous injuries and new personal goals, he has shifted his training to balance all the demands required of a Tier 1 operator. Can run a needed distance when asked, lift relative body weight for the majority of movements, carry more than his body weight, and still maintain great mobility and conditioning. To add to this training, he has also added jujitsu to his regimen. Like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So, with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Jake Patten. What's going on, everybody? Today I'm excited. We are joined by Coach Jake Patten. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing great, Coach. Thanks for having me on.
No, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we got chatting a little bit beforehand. It's another one of those like a couple degrees of separation. Familiar areas too, like you going, being around like the Georgetown guys, American, JMU, like kind of in that DMV area for a lot of your coaching career, and then still kind of pretty damn near close to that area as well. We know a lot of similar coaches, so I'm excited to get you on and kind of dive a little bit deeper and kind of introduce ourselves more and share you with the audience. So, hey, let's dive right into it too, like kind of get to know you a little bit better. But how'd you really get started in the strength game, lifting? I know you football was a big part of your life. How did all that kind of happen with football, the barbell, kind of leading into how you're training nowadays as well?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of an interesting backstory to it all. I was raised in a family where my dad played in the NFL. So when I was born into the family, my dad was in the heat of his NFL career, and so I grew up running around in the locker rooms, watching these big beast dudes, going to work every day and getting after it. And I kind of fell in love, obviously, with football, but just being in athletics in general at a young age. And at the time, my dad was playing with the Chargers. It was San Diego then. And so I was 4 years old, and that was when I first did a sport, and that was swimming. And in California, like a lot of other places, but the warm states and bodies of waters nearby, like the way you learn to swim is they throw you in the pool and figure it out, right? So at 4 years of age, I was figuring it out, and I don't recall what it was like, obviously, now that I'm older, but I'm pretty sure I fell in love with it, kind of getting my butt kicked and saying, oh my gosh, I can survive through this and kind of go above and beyond and get better at it. And so, growing up playing all sports, the only sport I didn't enjoy playing, obviously, it was baseball, and people are going to give me crap for it, but it was such a boring sport to me. I respect the hell out of it. I love working with those guys and the girls in the softball world and whatnot. But for me, I wanted to hit somebody. I wanted to be constantly moving. I could never sit still, which you'll probably see in this, podcast. I'm not jittery. I'm not, on anything. I can't sit still. But growing up playing hockey, basketball, soccer, swimming. I wasn't allowed to play football until seventh grade. My dad wouldn't let me. I was a scrawny little kid that, was tall, but not a lot of muscle, and I couldn't put anything on, even though my dad force fed insurers and all the old school ways of trying to put mass on me. And then as I got into football after middle school, and basketball was still kind of there, but not as much in terms of what I was really passionate about. Sophomore year of high school with football is when I really got into weightlifting and just training. And honestly, like Rob Brown and, his history with the Virginia Tech program to the NFL and being a local entity. I trained with him and his program every summer, every offseason that I could, and started to really fall in love with just training in general, but definitely lifting weights and learning how to move better. And it wasn't really till college that I actually truly fell in love with it. Mike Gentry, Dr. Mike Gentry, the legendary strength coach, and who I call, my Yoda, my mentor initially. He basically sat me down one day and was like, listen, you have a future here at Virginia Tech football. I was a recruited walk-on. And so I wasn't a scholarship guy. I didn't get a lot of love from a lot of the coaches in terms of that entity, but they wanted to see me succeed. My Coach Gentry was the one that really helped kind of push that across the table to me. Say, listen, if you want to earn a spot on this team and to get on that field and play, you got to invest everything you have in strength, conditioning, eating, protein, all that stuff. And so from that moment on, like I made it my mission. I wanted to play football, but I wanted to excel in strength conditioning. And I ended up breaking a few records in the weight room, which, I don't boast about a lot of things, but that is one of my bread and butters in terms of that really lighted the fire to wanting to do more. And then also inevitably helped other people to do more. So when my college career came to an end, I got into coaching, went down to Duke University as an intern, spent 2 years down there with Coach Cutcliffe and his crew. I got to see the Manning brothers come through because he coached them at Ole Miss and Tennessee. And so that really helped to kind of, further the passion of being interactive, of being influential, learning from other people, and so many other different ways that could help me carry it into coaching myself. And it's kind of funny because I didn't study kinesiology, sports science, none of that. I was a sociology major. I kind of thought I was still going to go into maybe like the criminal justice world. I even thought for a time I was going to leave college and go straight into the military. I had no idea what my future held for me. All I cared about in the moment was honestly drinking beer and playing football at college. Right, that was my intent. And so after Duke, my 2 years there, I was all in. I was invested, and I moved up to Northern Virginia, got a job working at American University as a full-time assistant, working under Coach Jason Riddell. And part of that reason, or part of my reasoning for going to American was I wanted to get away from football. I wanted to learn the other aspects of what it meant to be a strength coach, working with the Olympic sports. And I spent 3 years there. Ended up leaving as the head strength coach, going to JMU, following Coach Riddell to be an associate performance director down there with him, working with football and a couple of other sports. And then I pretty much ended up. I got burned out a little bit, not from strength and conditioning, just from the politics of football. As much as I loved it and it was in my DNA, I kind of was like, I'm a little tapped out, and I don't think that's good for my athletes. Not fair to them, and it pained me to leave the sports world. But I was also at the time, side note, dating a girl who is now my wife, and I think that was a big influential decision too. Is what's best for us, not just me. And so I actually had totally changed my mindset and thought I was going to go back to applying to police and fire agencies and trying to get into the tactical population by being a tactical athlete myself. And so I was actually in the process with Fairfax County Fire when I got this job. And I can go into that in a little bit, but basically it started from sports to learning how much my body and my mind really benefited from strength conditioning, to also wanted to be in that position of servitude. Like a lot of my grandfather, like we talked about, was a brigadier general, served in combat theaters, and continued that mission even after active duty, with helping people that were in the National Guard and even reserves and full career find scholarships, help them with their families, as they were deploying. And it just was inspiring to me, and then I had a couple uncles, a cousin, all serving. And so that really helped, me realize like, hey, I might not be in the military and I might not be an actual tactical athlete, but I know I can help those that help others. So that was kind of my calling, and that kind of woke me up one day when I realized that.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you kind of summed it up at the very end, like helping those who help others. Like that's kind of really I mean, that's the mark of a coach too. But like you're helping those, like, but it's just different the setting when it comes to like wins and losses, the game of sport. Like I mean, there's so many tie-ins too, and the benefits that come from just like the physical attributes of working with athletes to try to be better at their performance. But I think when you work tactical and you start working with these people, their careers are on the line and their lives are at stake in different aspects, whether it's rescue and EMS or it's military population and going into like foreign wars zones and things like that, or fighting fires all day, like that. It carries a deeper meaning, and that purpose is heavier and the toll is heavier too. So it kind of helps drive that point home. And I think I was the same way as you, like the collegiate style, like it was the politics. Like you can keep up with the schedule, and yeah, it sucks sometimes with how often you're pulled away or travel or feeling like you're just burnt out because of how the schedule works or how many teams you have or how many athletes. But I think it really is like more so being in a position where you feel undervalued and you can't do everything you want to do, and that you're capable to actually benefit your athletes, and you feel like they're at a disadvantage because of other people hampering what you're capable of doing. I mean, that's how I felt, at least when it came down to it. And that was a big reason for me to kind of step away. And then obviously, like to your point too, like get in a position where you can make a bigger impact with people that are trying to save lives and who are heroes at the end of the day.
Amen to all that, Coach. Yeah, that's very well said, and that's that was the hardest part about leaving it too, is I still felt like I was doing such a good job of helping our athletes. At JMU, my last stop, and it killed me to basically say goodbye to them. And then I found obviously the tactical world, and it helped to rebolster that mission in a sense. But you're spot on. It's so easy to get burned out from all that stuff on the sports side.
It was cool what you talked about too, like when it came to like your playing career, being a walk-on going to Virginia Tech, like obviously like Dr. Mike Gentry is a namesake of Virginia Tech. Like he'll always kind of be there in some way, shape, or form. And I know like I'm pretty sure former staff of his are still like around the weight room
Oh
as
yeah.
well there too. So he's a namesake there, but I think sometimes that weight room warrior kind of gets like a bad rap, like just the
Yeah.
name, the like the terminology behind it. But like those are the lunch pail guys that go in that do more than just like break records. Like they influence change. They fire up the rest of the team and get everybody going. And like I love those guys too because it shows that everyone's role on the team is the most important role. So you can really make an impact by just I mean, doing your own individual work because you see the rub off effect and like how it impacts the rest of the team and just the juice of just the weight room is off the charts when it comes to that. But that's awesome too. Like you taking a step away from football, like that being kind of what you grew up doing to get more experience. How impactful do you think that was to kind of take a step away, get more experience? Almost, I mean, you left Duke, which is a big Olympic program, a big football program in the ACC. At that time, it probably, I don't even know if it was. I can't remember with all the
It
changes.
was coming, not yet, but yeah.
There's too many changes with it. But then you go to American, and I was at American like after you, like interning with Coach Foster over there,
Yeah.
and that's how we kind of linked up. But very different dynamic, different teams, different structure, different kind of limitations and everything. How important was it for you to kind of take a step away from some of the bigger cultures, bigger football environments, see the Olympic side, because it's got to help you in your current job as well?
100%. And you obviously know well, but for those that don't, American University again is a Division I program with a lot of elite, athletes that come through there. But yet it's such a small school, and it doesn't always get the notoriety that it probably should in a lot of ways. And you have a high caliber wrestling program. Field hockey was winning Patriot League championships left and right. The basketball program was always fighting for a March Madness spot. So it was so unique and so cool and I didn't know that going into it. Like I just took it as it's a first time role that I could do full time, learn under someone that I had heard was an amazing coach, and just cut my teeth that way. And so as the years went through and went by, excuse me, man, learning truly how to utilize less is more kind of a concept, from working out of a closet as your office, to sharing your weight room with the Gen Pop, in their facilities, the NARPs as we call them, the non-athletic regular people, but and still trying to find ways to get after it, be loud, and we kind of be like that noisy complaint neighbor that everyone was yelling at to turn the music down, but we didn't care. We were trying to succeed with our mission. But it taught me a lot of things, from how little of a budget we had, to hiring, one staff member. Coach Chris Tolzman was my first ever hire, and to traveling with the men's basketball team on some weeks, and then women's basketball, and juggling all of that. I still go back and laugh about it, how much I learned, and didn't even realize it at the time, what I was doing was going to pay, dividends later on in my career. It was really unique and really cool. And there's times I actually truly miss of my stop at Duke, my stop at JMU. I love them. They were great for what they were, but I miss American the most. Like that was meeting the Georgetown guys and going down to Georgetown and lifting with them and doing some crazy training stuff with them, or them coming up to us, and everything in between. It was just such a cool and unique experience that sometimes it's hard to put into words. And even if I write a book, I don't know how I would do it, its due diligence. But meeting the people I got to meet, I mean, American was truly the bread and butter of my career in a lot of ways.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I have the same feelings like towards that area too, because I mean that's what we did at Georgetown, and that's like I was interning at Salisbury first, like my alma mater, but then like Georgetown was the first big one I got, and Coach Hill gave me a chance, and Coach Foster and Carl Johnson over there too were like the ones that like just kind of let me run rampant or tell me to like stay in my lane all the time. But it was so much fun just kind of being so enveloped in that culture. And like we're training, we're lifting, we got teams, like we're only talking about strength conditioning. Like you took everything in by a fire hose, and everybody else that came to visit or you went to go visit was like thinking the same mentality, just like that physical culture. And everybody was like stoked to like go and learn and open to do it and share. And that
Yeah.
community was awesome. And I wouldn't trade it. And but I think to your point too, like you got so much on your plate, you're juggling things all the time, you're on the road, like you eat, sleep, drink, like just strength conditioning at that point. You never really know the true impact of it until one, you step away and kind of like retroactively like look back on what happened.
Yeah.
But then also you get put in a new situation and you're like, oh, I feel more prepared for this because I've already done this 100 times in probably a more difficult situation with less.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's times everyone's got that, wild story of when they were a younger coach and whatnot, but there was times where I lived right across basically the street from Northwest DC in Arlington, Virginia, and traffic was always a nightmare getting out of the city, right? Or even sometimes getting in, even at like 4 a.m. in the morning. There's times where I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna sleep in my car in the parking deck, because it was just easier than going home knowing I had a lift at like 5:30 with the wrestling team. And I laugh at those, chuckling, like, yeah, I was single and I didn't have a lot of obligations, but I was just sleeping in my Explorer, walking in, pounding like a monster or 5 cups of coffee, and then getting after it and doing it all over again the next day.
Oh man, that sounds so familiar because I was working at Loyola in Maryland, and I was doing my CSCCA mentorship with Foster. So I would leave Baltimore, drive on 95, go through one city, then get through DC, through another city, and I'd sleep in my truck or listen to podcasts and wait and for the meters to turn on at 6 a.m. So I'd set like an alarm to make sure I didn't sleep through it, and then I'd go out, like pay whatever it was in quarters, and
Yeah,
then set an alarm on my phone, and at lunch I'd have to go back out and put more money in and then go back inside and finish coaching. And it
yeah,
was I mean, I feel like you still need that kind of like internship, like apprenticeship thing in the very beginning. One, to see like if you can handle it, if you like it, if you enjoy it. If you don't, after that, hopefully your career is not like that the entire time because
right.
like
Hopefully,
yeah, your life changed, like more obligations, family responsibilities, like all these other things come into play. But I feel like that prepares you the most for being able to handle everything and then start to kind of climb the ladder within your career. So kind of taking all that, you shifted obviously like towards a tactical setting, working with firefighters, like LEO, like police, rescue, EMS guys and everything too. Kind of explain, I know you've talked about it before, but kind of explain a little bit of like the structure of Fairfax County and like what your role is now. Because I know over the course of like, I think you're going on 9 years now there.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's changed within its time, like it's expanded. Your title has changed as well. How is kind of like the structure of what you oversee, what you work with, and how has that kind of evolved going into year 9?
Sure. Yeah. Man, back in 2016, when I first took over, they had a program before. And so I'll start with this. In 05, oh 06, the big International Association of Firefighting, the big, union per se, got together and they're like, hey, listen, we need to find structure to have, health and wellness in every agency, every department. Now, again, they're not quite there yet, but it's spreading like wildfire. And more agencies are investing and they're bringing SMEs on. And so when I took over in 16, there'd already been a strength coach there, Coach Carl Shepard, who now does, I don't even know what his formal or a former role is. But it's something to the point where he walks in front of Congress and asks for more funding, more grants, whatever, for Space Force in their health and wellness program and hires, the strength coaches. So he was the one running the shop. He had awesome vision and he had a great mission set up. But it was still very much, and this wasn't him, this was more just the culture. It was very much still occupational health, medical, and rehab, you know. And so when I walked into our weight room, it was nothing but a lot of machines, Very minimal, for the lack of a better term, but functional, dynamic based fitness equipment and concepts, and a lot of job task assessments. So there wasn't a lot of like let's challenge the human side and assess the human side from the fitness perspective. It was pretty much, can you do the job or not? And so my mission was obviously to take the first year and as much as I could learn about it, do my ride-alongs, watch our annual work performance evaluation, which was, for them kind of a fitness assessment. There was fitness components to it, but it entailed getting into gear, going on air, and doing 9 job tasks, which, pulling a dummy, making a force entry on a device, throwing a ladder, those kinds of things. And it was a pass-fail. It's could you do it in a certain amount of time frame? And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I was geeking out over the gear, being on air, doing, fireground stuff. But the strength coach in me was like, what is the point of this? Nobody's got a heart rate monitor on. We're not really doing anything with that information. It's really just, did they pass? Great. Awesome. See you next year. If you failed, you were put into kind of what you would call a fitness for duty concept. But it was really on the captains, the battalion chiefs, and a little bit on me to kind of make sure that they were squared away, because it could have been that they were just running calls and they came right in to do their assessment. They were just fatigued, or they pounded a bunch of caffeine beforehand and their heart rate and their vitals were all jacked up. And then they came in, a week later and crushed it, So it wasn't really a true indicator of what was going on with them from an internal standpoint, but as well as just a strength and conditioning standpoint. So, my captain at the time and myself, we worked side by side. We came up with, listen, we need to have some type of a fitness implementation, like an assessment, to kind of see where our folks are at. Line of duty deaths have always been pretty much over 60%, even as of 2016 to now, give or take, high on the higher end back then, but definitely on the lower end now. But the percentage being based around cardiovascular events, people were having heart attacks in the fire station, not necessarily even on a call. Although there were some of that. So it wasn't even necessarily like a death because of a fire per se. It was the majority of it. People were just out of shape. They weren't sleeping right. They weren't eating right. They weren't working out the way they needed to. And so we needed to get a gauge as to how our department was doing with that. And so we did a lot of research, homework. Not a lot of departments, like I said, were doing this. So outside of big Army, big Navy, and some of, obviously the sports realm, but from the government military side, DoD side, what could we get from them to kind of throw on the table in front of our decision makers, and especially like our county attorney, our local union reps, and get approval, and everybody kind of agree, like, we need to start somewhere. I don't care if it's like the old presidential fitness testing, just give us a way to implement something to track our people. And we came up with it with our help, with the help from people across the street with the air marshals, just basic, pull up, curl up, push up. And then they did a 1.5-mile test. We ended up doing a step test from the Queens College version of an estimated VO2, and just said, hey, this is very basic. I don't love the curl up. Pull-ups are what they are. A lot of people aren't going to be able to do them, especially for our female population, but at the very least, we have our ground zero. And so for the next 3 years after we got approval, and let me back up, we were also told, our fire chief loved it. He was a Marine. He got it. He was like, cool, but we can't do both the work performance and the fitness assessment yearly. Pick one. Well, obviously, we were going to go with the fitness assessment. So, we still got a lot of shots fired at us as, you got rid of the work performance. And that was one of the best way for some of our people who don't always get into gear that often to get into gear and do stuff. It's like, well, again, from our shop's perspective, we need to do a fitness component. So for the next couple of years, we were going all out on this fitness assessment. We visited stations. We talked about what that fitness assessment was going to look like, and so forth. And so now we're in a great state with that. So not to go off on a tangent too much of this, but it was very basic, very vanilla, chocolate-based program to start with back in 2016. We now have our second version of our fitness mobility assessment. It's a captain, 2 lieutenants, and a technician that are staffed with me on the fire side. And then who I oversee on the police side, we now have 3 strength conditioning coaches full-time, as well as a dietitian and a full-time nutritionist. And all they do is literally on the fire side, police side, and then combined go through dietary needs and components and concepts and education. We also have an athletic trainer and then 2 physical therapists, one of which is our director of rehab. So our program has grown, pretty greatly in a lot of different ways. And we have the right people in those positions too. That's the most exciting part. I'm going to be a little biased, but for good reason. The people that we have that are in these roles, I mean, they're some of the best athletic trainers and physical therapists that I've worked with ever. And even the strength conditioning coaches have been just awesome. I'm still a student in the strength game, so even though I'm going on 18 years as a strength coach, I try to learn as much as I can, as I know we all do. I don't care if you're 25 years of age with 5 years of experience or 30 years of experience. What do you got for me? What can I be doing better? What can I learn from you? And then how can we help, delegate that out or even just implement it to our people to help make them better, because we're their 911. So it's really cool to see the program grow, especially on the fire side, which was my initial role. And I'm still technically a fire and rescue employee from the county perspective, but now I'm a director of strength and conditioning that oversees the PD and the sheriff's departments as well. And so it's kind of cool and unique. I get to still focus on just red, still focus on just blue, have my strength coaches handling a lot of those things. But then I'm also charged with being the bridge to both of those departments. It's cheesy, but I call it the purple effect. I got to bring the red and the blue together to kind of figure out, operationally, all of our folks are awesome. We train together. We have morning workouts together. We have our special operations division on police side that includes K9, the SWAT team, narcotics. They come in and they're training with some of our tech rescue paramedics, and they're working out, talking trash, but getting along. So really, it's from the high end, the decision-making side of it is sitting down with our chiefs and making sure everyone's getting along, but and they're all bought in with each other, and it's great, but just making sure we're seeing it from both views, both lenses as, hey, you're right on the PD side and you're right on the FD side. But when we come together, there might be some discrepancies or differences. How do we iron those wrinkles out? And so I'm kind of a mitigator. I'm a lot of things. I'm actually probably less of a coach than I've ever been, and I still assess our recruits like I was doing this morning. I still do stand-ins for, any of the other coaches that might have a schedule conflict, and I still want to be involved because I want to stay sharp. But man, I'm more of an admin and a manager than I've ever been. It's a weird sensation.
Hey, I mean, that's great, but you being in that admin role, as much as it takes you away from the coaching, I know you could still find pop in there and get on the floor and coach, but that's the perfect role for someone in that position because you want someone that is really experienced with what hiring staff, other coaches that are going to be in those positions, how the day-to-day, the logistics actually go. You don't want someone that has no experience in it because then you're making larger decisions that might go up and out that affect everybody that's actually internal. So, I mean, it's the same thing we saw in the collegiate setting too when it came to sports admin a lot of times, and have that assistant AD that was never an athletic trainer or strength conditioning coach, but they're overseeing both the departments and they don't really take the time to actually come see what day-to-day operations look like when they make those decisions. So as much as it takes you away, it's a bigger impact that you can make for the other coaches. And then, I mean, once you can let a couple of those rubber balls that you're juggling bounce around for a little bit, you can probably pop in the weight room and kind of see everything going on. But
No
I
doubt.
mean, it's awesome too. Like you said it too, hiring really good people, having a good staff, who we're working with, they deserve the best too. So you should be looking to get the best. I know this might come across different, but Fairfax is a very unique, Fairfax County is a very unique place when it comes to like all the different emergency response, public safety people that you work with versus a lot of other counties, maybe jurisdictions that have smaller departments. But it's starting to pick up more with tactical strength coaches, people shifting out of different jobs, out of collegiate setting, professional setting, and coming into these jobs. And like you said, it's still growing with these unions for these positions for people to get hired on. One, how can people that are interested in working with this population kind of either look for these positions or reach out to, who should they reach out to in order to see if this position is even created at a current firehouse or police department, or if there's a potential for that to happen? Because I know I've spoken to a lot of people that are like, hey, I want to work with this population. What's the first step? Who do I even talk to? I don't want to walk into an active firehouse and just poke around, but how do these positions and roles kind of, in your experience, talking to other people, actually get created, or can you find them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough dilemma because there's still so many people that reach out and want to get involved. And it's so awesome that it's starting to grow, like you said. And my funny story with it, again, I was in the process to become a Fairfax County firefighter, had no idea. I'm from this county, had moved back here and had no idea that they had a strength and conditioning program. And so I'm literally running on a treadmill, with the stress test, and I got all the, freaking sensors on me and everything. And the doc's like, "Hey, what's your background?" And I told him, he's like, "That's hilarious. We have an open position. Maybe you should apply. You're non-military. It'll probably take a little while for you to get on, but in the meantime, it's a foot in the door." I'm like, "Cool." But so for me, if it wasn't for that, I was blessed to have that conversation and to kind of have it fall in my lap a little bit. But you kind of said it. I would say there's a couple of different ways for sure. One being, yes, go to that local firehouse police station, because a lot of our operational folks, they're going to know if they have a strength program, a health and wellness program, and they're going to be able to talk to you about it. And like personal trainers, even if you're working with a firefighter or someone that's trying to get on the job, it might be a great conversation to have and see if there's a way you can get your foot in the door that way. Because it is challenging, NSCA, the CSCCA, like all these other NASM, they all do a pretty good job of like the job boards and trying to get positions out there that need to be filled and make people aware, but they're limited, and even my role, technically, I'm considered a management analyst 3. So if you went on the Fairfax County website and looked that up, you're not going to think twice about like, what the hell is that? Like, that's not a strength coach. Like, I'm going to move on unless you start to read the job description, right? And so, from human performance to, all the different names that we have as strength coaches, there is a lot of that on the county government side as well, that you kind of have to look, in between the lines a little bit. And maybe that's something we bring to, the governing bodies of our certs and be like, "Hey, have you ever thought about putting out like a cheat sheet of some of these names and titles that are strength coaches in disguise?" That way people have an idea of if they want to go on a certain county website, they can type in some keywords and maybe that'll help guide them in the right direction. But I know there's a lot of coaches in our world that, through like podcasts to just phone calls to whatever, trying to help spread the gospel of what we do and how we do it and how we got involved. And it's very tricky for sure. But I think communication, outreach, and being as proactive as possible is the biggest way to do it. And I know like George Mason, American, Georgetown, we have a bunch of universities kind of local. And we've been trying to do our part of, selfishly, obviously, trying to help better our program by getting invested with them, whether it's GPS devices to studies to whatever, but also like, "Hey, you guys got any interns or GAs that you have that need some hours or are interested in this field or just strength conditioning in general? Send them our way." It's not paid. And we're trying to work towards that way. But at the very least, they get a foot in the door. They only spend, a couple hours a week with us. We get to know them. We can then maybe pass them off to Coach O'Brien that maybe is looking for somebody to fill a spot or whatever, and try to, be a force multiplier for those that don't know, in a sense, But it's so difficult. And even being here almost, 9 years, almost 10 years in October, I still find it hard sometimes to share what the true and proper, answer or direction is for some of these folks, especially the younger folks that are just getting their feet underneath them. What does it take to find that job, or how do I get invested in it? It's tough.
No, that's great advice though. It's always interesting too, but I think it goes to the point where you talked about like in 2005, 6 when the union's starting to like kind of put more of a precedence on health and wellness and like actually prepare firefighters, and then like obviously like all the other stations and the police and everything like have their own aspect of it too. The blue side is different as well, but it's just ever evolving. Like it's fairly new, like in a structured kind of accredited or like systematic way versus like how college was. And college was the same way like decades ago when the first coaches started getting involved on. And I mean, you get the 5 rule, you get all these conference
Yeah.
changes, you like it's ever evolving. So you just kind of get ahead of it and just reach out and find some people that are already involved. But it's nice too, like I think that a lot of coaches end up looking at the military side because it's more forward facing. People see the job postings. Maybe it's clear cut because they did have those issues in the beginning where like in the shadows there were coaches and they were only working with like special operations and elite personnel before it started getting conventional forces and getting huge, like I think the H2F contract is close to like $5 billion.
Yeah.
So like they're enormous contracts, but there's all these small counties that are working like under the table to work with individuals to like start to bring a program. So you could be starting something great. And then for you too, like it's so much less red tape, obviously on the college side, but like for fire and police probably to bring on interns to even just shadow versus I got to get them like access to the base. That's not happening.
Right. Right.
So yeah, if you want to get in the tactical setting, like that's a great way to kind of do it and cut your teeth with a different population for people that really truly need it. So that was definitely great advice. Talking about like the differences in red and blue, like you've got your hand in both of them, like you're overseeing all those coaches and different members of the staff that are involved in things. Like, what are some of like maybe the differences and main priorities you're looking for when it comes to job performance, health and wellness, like just general like readiness when it comes to these different populations, these different duties that they have. Because I know there's a lot of overlap, but you also have to, again, balance like career, longevity, health and wellness, like all the sleep, nutrition, and everything too. Like there's a lot on their plate. How do you kind of balance those things? And then are there any clear cut differences between the red and the blue side?
Yeah, I mean, outside of just, no different than in the sports world when we trained a football team compared to a women's lacrosse team or swimming, diving, and golf, right? We're still trying to educate, teach, and implement strength and conditioning to where they're getting strength, they're getting, some speed mechanics, agility, plows, mobility built into all their programming. So it's not, I don't want to say it's like an anti-job specific entity at first. Let's just try to make you move better or just be a better version of yourself. And then we can start to build in some of the other aspects of whatever the job is or the equipment is that you're carrying or whatever. On the fire side, again, you got anywhere from 70 to 100 pounds additionally on top of you when you're responding to a high rise fire. So understanding structurally what we got to get them prepared for. And it starts from just, basics, isometrics, eccentrics, and all that stuff. And then, the mindset is, I'm going to respond to a call. The majority of our firehouse, well, actually, I'll put it this way: the majority of our county is a lot of our calls are EMS based, and a lot of accidents and entrapments, stuff like that, because we have so many major highways and stuff in and around the city, DC, as well as our county. And so, yes, we get a good amount of fires too, but we're not FDNY, we're not Boston in that regard. So we still need to train for it. We still have a lot of high rises in certain areas. And so the basis of our strength and conditioning programs are a lot more strength with a lot of conditioning, but conditioning that is based around sled pushes, concept twos, assault and echo bikes, and not as much running per se. Because they're already getting so much impact on the body. They have so much load on them. We will do some running, like even in recruit school, they still run. And there are times where we need to challenge them with a 2 to 3 mile run. But the idea is to cap it at 3. Like we're not going above 3. You don't need to, right? I'd rather get more bang for the buck with sleds or just doing some hill sprints or whatever. And then if you were to look on the other side with the police, it's a little bit different in that regard. You're going to get in foot pursuits. You're going to have a different type of conditioning level with less equipment, but at times still as much of a demand and probably a hindrance to your mobility when you're sitting in a cruiser all day as a patrol officer. You got a belt, you got a vest on, and then you got to click out, take off, and run. So from a rotational stepping out of the vehicle to all of a sudden I got to try to move my arms as best I can around all this other stuff. So again, it's implementing the basics, teaching them that stuff, and then taking it to the next level and understanding like, hey, when you do have this gear on, here's what you should be thinking about. Here's how to activate certain muscle groups. And then again, a lot of it comes down to the mindset and what they're dealing with, from what they're seeing and the calls that they deal with from, not just the death and blood and gore per se, but just the wear and tear and the toll of the quantitative, like how many calls are going on, how much sleep deprivation they have. It doesn't matter if it's fire or police side, they're still dealing with pretty much the same concepts, and some of the best workouts, and we try to educate them on this too, is you come in the door. We harp on leaving everything outside that door of the weight room. You come in, lay down, take a couple of deep breaths, grab a foam roller, grab a lacrosse ball, a band, whatever it is to kind of initiate the beginning phase of your workout, your dynamic movement prep, whatever. And if your body is hurting or your mind is hurting, you're just not there and you can't focus, come sit in the office with us and just shoot the crap with us, talk about whatever it is that you just went on a call with and what you're dealing with at home, or just, hey, did you see that game last night? To us, that is one of the best workouts that some of our first responders can have, is kind of an active recovery day or whatever else you want to call it. and then, hey, maybe we can hit it hard the next day, or the 2 days from now when you're not on shift, and so it ebbs and flows. Everybody's a little bit different, especially when you're talking about different teams. You got so many different specialties, and on the Fairfax County fire side, from all the different units, from tech rescue to EMS to our USAR team, urban search and rescue team that gets deployed all over the world with natural disasters at times, to police, with all of our specialties, TAC, narcotics, patrol, all those things. It's kind of juggling who it is you're talking to, what team you're working with or unit, understanding what's going to help make it click for them. We have yoga sessions, we have our wellness clinicians, we have, and all of our staff, our strength and conditioning staff, as well as our rehab and dietetics, we're all peer support trained. So, if we need to, we'll sit there and not say a word and just listen. And if we feel like we need to point you in the right direction with a wellness clinician, we can. So there's a lot of cool things that we get to do based off that, that are job specific and job friendly, but at the same time, we're just dealing with humans, right? At the end of the day. And I think we have to remind ourselves of that is, we could have the greatest program written and designed, ready to implement for my SWAT team when they're coming in tomorrow morning. But man, if they just served a warrant last night and then they had a hostage rescue this morning and they're still trying to come in because of the type A hard chargers that they are, and they want to do something and they're going to go all out no matter what, it's really our job as strength coaches to say, no, I'm going to pull back on you a little bit and say, let's chill on that for a minute, and so that doesn't change, red or blue, that principle is still there as a part of our vision and mission with how we're going to, respond and help our people.
Yeah, I mean, that's well put. I think that's one of the conversations I've had with people and trying the same thing as you, like trying to explain your job and like kind of what the day to day looks like. It's human first. Like they have a higher stress, like more demanding role than a lot of like people in 9 to 5 jobs have. And it's hard to like quantify some of that stress too. Like when you talk about like lack of sleep or like interrupted sleep or just like the things that they see, constant shifts in schedule, like high alert all the time, and you add training on top of it. And a lot of them are type A hard chargers. And like to your point too, like some of the best training sessions are just getting them to like shift their focus, have a conversation and not do what the intention was that day. But most of them are like set on like, I got to keep going, I got to keep going, and being able to
Yep.
pull them back and down regulate
Yep.
is has such a long-term effect on them, beneficial, that's what you need. You need that person in that role to like kind of be the voice of reason and also be a step removed from what the job is and be detached. Because a lot of times I feel like if you are involved in the job and like maybe I know you guys do peer coaches, I want to touch on that a little bit too. But if
Yep.
you're that peer coach and then you're the person that's leading the session, maybe you just had the worst call of your life
No doubt.
and you got to go in and teach them and like run the session, but no one else was part of it. Or maybe they had the worst call of their life and you're jacked up, ready to go. And this is going to be the best lift of all time because like your piss is hot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having someone that's there to kind of like pull those individuals to the side or make those kind of subtle changes and like just adapt and be a chameleon type coach, like that's what they need. And I think a lot of I don't want to get on a soapbox of it, but that's I think a problem with like what some of the H2F programs had with some of like broadcasting out as many coaches as they did and some of these other jobs I'm worried about with them putting as many jobs out there. They're not built for entry level coaches. They're not built for like very young coaches first 5 years because you don't have the experience, you don't have the breadth of knowledge to like really hold back. You might be very knowledgeable in programming, but you don't have the experience to like kind of be a weird sort of barbell therapist at
Right.
times. Um, yeah, can you touch on that too? If there's anything you want to add on that, feel free. But like, can you touch on like how those peer coaches kind of work too? Because like you said, you can't be there for every session too. And these are
No.
adults, they have jobs, they have weird schedules. So they really need to kind of own their own training and be able to do it on their own time with all the different obligations they have on top of their job duties too.
Yeah, that's it's a great point, and that's something we battle almost every day, every week, and every session that we have our PFTs, our peer fitness trainers involved with is, And to go back and give credit to, Coach John Hoffman with calling it, we're their 911. That's the hardest thing to tell someone that actually is the 911 to the community when they're coaching other folks, their peers. It's like, hey, remember when I say that to you, like turn your take your hat off as a firefighter, take your hat off as a police officer. Like I mean that as a strength coach, like as someone that's going to be teaching and educating them on how to move better. And that's very hard and challenging. And even for those that have some experience with strength and conditioning before they got into the service or whatever, they kind of forget sometimes. Like, yeah, I'm still kind of thinking, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, about that call I just ran, or whatever it is I'm dealing with at home, or the lack that I'm going on 2 hours of sleep. So the lack of sleep that I'm dealing with. And so we have, give or take 30 to 40 pure fitness trainers on the fire side, a little bit more on the police side, and that ebbs and flows as to how many we have on each side. And that's mostly because promotions, retirements, they have a new baby, or what, they just got married, and their life changes, take them away from it. And we're very understanding of that, obviously, because at the end of the day, we just want people that are passionate. And I don't care what your background is. If you're just someone that loves fitness and wants to be helpful, cool, come in and we're going to train you up on it. We have our own kind of interagency, or agencies plural, certification process. And I say that proudly because, I am a TSAC instructor, and I love the NSCA and what they've done with TSAC. But sometimes it just makes more sense to do it in-house and to just kind of go with it when we can, because of price or time, or whatever it is. And like we do monthly newsletters I do a weekly schedule email as to, hey, this is who's working next week. And then I'll add in some tidbits as to, hey, remember with some of these movements and the cues for each. And especially with our fitness and mobility assessment, I don't run that. That goes hand in hand with our physicals every year for our firefighters. And so when they go into our occupational health center once a year and they get their physical done, they have to go through our FMAP. And so our PFTs are the ones running that. So we train them up on that, extensively. And then, they shadow us, and then we shadow them just to make sure they're squared away. And then boom, it's weapons free. You're running it. And then they give us a debrief every day, how many people they saw, who canceled, who has to reschedule. And then if anybody failed it, if they land in a fitness improvement plan, we contact them, their supervisors, and all of a sudden, boom, it's all hands on deck with strength and conditioning, our dietitian, our wellness, and we're kind of making sure we're keeping that person sandwiched in the parameters of health and wellness to make sure that they don't dip any further. But at the same time, they can excel and last longer in the career, and then go into retirement happy and healthy, right? So our PFTs are honestly the backbone of our program in a lot of ways. They're not just our extension, our force multipliers. They're the people that really we get to learn from. Hey, what are you hearing and seeing in the field? Well, what are you dealing with at your station? Who can we help and get hands on with? And even on the police side, and the police is different. They don't have, like, as a police, as a service in general, an industry of tactical athletes, the police side is very challenging because the union components are a little bit different than the fire side. Still coming off of COVID and all, don't back the blue kind of, political tornado that happened. We're just now kind of catching our breath with, hey, back to blue, and here's why they still matter, and here's how we need to hire SMEs for them and get involved with them, because it's not like they ever lost sight of that. They know they needed that, but it became an issue. And so our police department, because I can't speak about too many other PD places, but ours has been awesome. In not only do we want to catch up to where fireside is, we want to be better than them. So it's really cool to have that interagency competition, but it's also fun because it brings about the best in both. It's, hey, we're going to try to beat each other, but at the same time, how do we build each other up so that we can try to push the envelope a little bit further? And their PFTs, and again, on both sides, I should also say, we're using them with recruit PT. So fire side and police side, we have strength coaches for both those academies, and then we have PFTs supplementing those strength coaches in running recruit workouts every day that we have them, as well as our morning workouts here at our main facility, and then the workouts in the morning and the evening at our headquarters. So we have 3 different locations outside of our police and fire stations where we're implementing strength and conditioning every day. And the PFTs, again, are the backbone of that outside of our full-time strength staff. And with 39 fire stations, 12 police stations, plus the 2 academies, plus our facility, combined, 3,500 members of PD and FD with such a small staff, it almost feels like going back to what we talked about with American, we're so outnumbered and and dealing and juggling with so much with so little. Even though we have great resources, and again, we're blessed with Uncle Fairfax and what they provide us, we are still getting our butts kicked in a lot of ways. So it's fun, it's competitive and challenging in that regard, but at the same time, it's very challenging and the bad side of it sometimes as well.
Yeah, that's a big system you have, like just
Yeah,
rattling off those numbers, all the different stations and everything too. And like you talked a little bit about your staff before, like that's a lot to like cover down. And if you didn't have those PFTs, like you would be in a trouble because like I mean they're a
yeah,
force multiplier, and I think it's the same as the military side too. Like when you kind of empower those like senior NCOs in those positions where they're the one that's going to drive like the culture of what's going on daily, and they're also the ones that should like really take ownership over physical training and everything too. Like subject matter experts, like contracted like these government positions are supposed to be the experts that kind of help shift and guide like what happens, but they're
right.
the ones that carry it out all the time. If you didn't have them, like you guys would be drowning for sure.
Oh my God, we wouldn't do half of what we're doing. Probably even three-quarters of what we're doing, and that's part of like, the beast of it all, right? It's a curse and a blessing that again from 2016 and how little we were doing compared to now, but still doing some great things. We created all these programs and concepts and ideas, and it's taken off. But now it's like we're constantly plugging the holes in the ship a little bit. As we're still sailing, we're still cruising, and we're still going to get to our objective. But man, those holes seem to be bigger and in different places. And what are we going to plug it with this time? We ran out of materials. It's that kind of concept of we have to slow down and take our breath, a little bit and be like, okay, where do we need to put the majority of our emphasis and our staff and resources, and then be ready to ebb and flow with that between PD and FD and everything in between. Still work with our brothers and sisters on the civilian side that aren't public safety and first responders, and still be there to kind of help guide them when we do county events, government events with them on like a field and fitness day, to working with some of the COG region agencies, Prince William County, talking to other different places around us to try to help share what we struggled with and what we sucked at, and then got better from learning those things, to how can we help you, and vice versa. So it is, man, it's funny to kind of to sit back and look at it like, man, we really created a monster, but it's a cool monster, and it's a beneficial monster, but man, we gotta tame it from time to time.
Well, I think you guys have created something that like a lot of people can model off it. And I mean, it's the same as like some of the big schools we talk to coaches all the time, and you're like, well, they got a really great system. And you can look at the lens of, oh, well, they have lots of donors, they have lots of money, they're successful all the time, but you can still steal those things and put it in context for where you're working, and you can start from different ground levels. But for to hear you talk to all the different agencies, like it's different. Like, I mean, even within your own, like red versus blue, like it's brotherly, sisterly love. Like we're gonna beat the hell out of each other all day, but at the end of the day, like you got my back, I got your back. But
Yeah.
that competition breeds excellence, and talking to different stations and sharing information all the time, like that's only going to make everybody more efficient, healthier, a lot safer place too. And like that needs to be common knowledge, and or needs to be common that that's what the norm is. We're always kind of like trying to work to improve and bouncing ideas off of each other when it comes to those things. And I mean, the PFTs sound like your eyes and ears when it comes to everything, because you can't be on every ride along. You can't be in certain situations and everything too. And like they kind of give you a pulse of how things are going at stations when you can't be at all of them all the time. Um, Wanted to touch on this too when it comes to like not just the differences and like the job tasks and everything too, but when it comes to like stages of the career for individuals. I know before we got talking, like your new recruit classes there, and very different with just the breadth of population that you're working with.
Yeah.
Um, Not only like are some of the recruits like older or coming from different careers, maybe just fresh out of high school as well, and like honestly like don't know how to tie their shoes, like which is
Yeah.
probably putting it really nice. But you got other ones like in that academy setting, you've got some early in their career, mid-career, late career. Um, how is training differ from all those different situations? Because I know you keep them all like, I mean, the individual is the center of everything. and you have all these different spokes that kind of help them treat them as a holistic model. But specifically when it comes to like getting them up to like Fairfax County, like your methodology, like is it all generalized basic training when it comes to like the recruits in the academy? And then once they kind of like make it through, they start working specialized like training, or how do you kind of approach teaching them like your strength conditioning methods at these various stages of their career?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to the adage of a good strength and conditioning program where, especially at a recruit level, basic training type of concept, we're going to meet them at their level, right? So, what is the lowest common denominator? What are they struggling with, right? And kind of meeting them there. And typically, with us, let's say again 30 people in this newest recruit class, we got about 29, 28 in the one that's most senior, going to graduate at the end of the summer. And again, they've, like you said, age to specificity and what they know to do or not to do. No matter what, there's a lot of it that boils down to resiliency, fortitude, challenge, and like overcoming things, embracing the suck early on. And again, it doesn't matter if you're 40 years old, 10, 15, 20 years old. If you've never really been in that environment before, whether it was with sports or the military or just an upbringing in general, it's very blatant when you see these recruits walk in the door. And they might be, yes, sir, no, sir, and buttoned up in a lot of ways. But then you start having them move, or you start implementing a challenge to them, and they're getting their asses kicked, right? And so we always start off, today was our first assessment with the newest class, just again to grab some data off of them. What do they look like movement wise, to some muscular endurance, to some cardio stuff, super low end, non impactful. And again, I have my basis of a recruit school program design, but I wouldn't even want to go down the rabbit hole of like what does the meso, macro, micro look like, right? Because at the end of the day, I know I got 6 months with them. I know I got about give or take 12 to 13 weeks with them before they hit suppression, which is, to your point, like they're in the most specialized portion of the academy. Like they're in gear almost every day, on air, humping hose, throwing ladder, doing whatever it is that's very job specific. So about 12 weeks, I call it kind of just the training camp. I have you for 12 weeks before the season starts. And really of that 12 weeks, I probably have about a 6 to 8 week span of good, solid work that I can get out of them, because the first week is kind of a toss up. I don't know, depending on how the class looks and how they're prepared or not. That first week is learning about your body, body mechanics 101. How do you move in a dynamic? What is a dynamic? Movement prep to, hey, this is a dry erase board. Here's our workout. Here's how progression works, sets and reps. And so, yes, I do have my implementation on, my spreadsheets and my pad and paper, but I kind of go weekly and even really bi-weekly as to how I progress them or regress or modify. And again, it's just based off of what they're showing as to what they need, and I call them pajama kids because we have a lot of individuals that crawl out of their mom and dad's basement that, to your point, can't tie shoes and can't even look at you, eye to eye. And, it's really interesting too, because it's not just the young generation per se, but it's definitely like that 18 to 29, 30 year age gap where I don't know where it's coming from. And maybe COVID screwed them up a little bit, but like they need like some type of, hey, like you get me, right? So like, hey, you just talk to me, sir. Thank you, sir. And they stick out their hand for a handshake, or they try to give you a knuckle for a fist bump. And it's like, I'm good and I appreciate that, but no, we're just talking. Like I don't need to give you some type of attention or some type of like acknowledgement that we're good. We're good. You just go about your business. If you're not good and we're not good, I'll let you know. And so it's really interesting, talking to them, and that they're kind of looking down a lot, or they're looking to the left or the right, and we're trying to break them of that, make eye contact, add attention, be present. It's really interesting because I've been seeing a lot of that, and it's almost declining and getting worse. Where I don't know what's going on with that in the human world, but we're doing our damnedest to make sure that we're not sending those cats out to the field that way. It's have some respect and also obviously give that respect out. But and on the PD side, same concept. Again, they have a little bit of a different, obviously a very different schedule in terms of they're going to train for X amount of weeks, and then they have a breakout period, and they go out to the field and they go to some of their specialties, and that's a little bit of a longer period where they're not doing anything with strength conditioning. And our strength coach is awesome. He'll give them a bunch of stuff, kind of like on holiday in the sports world. Hey, you're on Christmas break or whatever. You got 2 weeks that I don't know what you're going to be doing, or it's summer break. You got 2 months potentially. I don't know what you're doing, but here's your program. Good luck. Hit me up if you got questions. So PD is definitely a little bit more challenging in that regard with their academy setting. But yeah, it's 6 months is a lot of time, but it's also not a lot of time, especially when you get into in season mode, because that's like the only place in a fire service career where you have a in season and out of season or off season concept is in the academy. Because then once you hit the field, there is no such thing as an off season. You're on all the time. And that's why we try to harp on really like when it is a time to recover and maybe download, downregulate, whatever it is you're programming or whatever else you're doing on the side, especially some of our guys and girls that love CrossFit or that challenge themselves and get after it. Again, I'm not concerned about them performance wise, but I am in terms of how much they're doing that's too much or not enough recovery built into it. And then, yes, you are by definition overtraining. And so yeah, it's really cool to kind of challenge myself with a new recruit class every time. I have a plan, but I don't know what that plan is going to look like and how much of it is going to stick until I get those people in front of me.
Yeah, you got a structure, but at the end of the day, like you kind of see you take a mental picture of like what the room looks like and you have to kind of gauge it around that. But you might progress something quicker, you might get to something, you might have to just like focus on something benign forever, like with that group. But it's interesting. It's a cool way to like bring them about like into the academy too, to like show them that this is foundational stuff that's going to carry you through your career and hopefully let you take your career as long as you want to take it and keep you healthy, keep you performing at your best and be able to like come home from every single like call. So
Yeah,
it's
that's honestly part of the reason why we don't even do barbell work in the academy, right? And I know a lot of coaches are going to look at me crazy, but at the end of the day, it's ROI. What's the biggest bang for the buck? And I like today, I had three individuals that had pretty serious knee surgeries within like the last 2 years to a couple shoulder issues, and I'm like, there's times I'll have a class that I won't even touch a weight for the first 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks at a time until we got the basics. So by the end of the day, like I said, it's at 12 weeks and I only got about 6 weeks, give or take. How much am I going to get, that's beneficial and a return on investment with doing a lot of barbell work? I'd rather just do dumbbells, kettlebells, all the other great stuff. And then, hey, if you get into the field, I'm not anti-barbell. I love barbells. I love doing cleans and stuff like that. But it depends on the individual, depends on the need. Come back and see me. We can train you up on whatever you need. We'll talk technique and whatnot. So it's interesting, like you said, it just depends, right?
well, you're playing the long game right there, and like, what's the biggest bang for your buck? And I think some of the other intangibles, things like you can't measure, like is they're coming in from different settings, and all this is pretty much probably new to them, unless you've got someone coming through the academy a second time, or like I don't know, like has to get research. I don't know how any of that stuff works, but everything's new. No matter how much research they do ahead of time, how much preparing they do, like they're never really going to quite know what the expectation is until they're sitting in that room and they've got whatever, I don't know any of the ranks, but fire chief, or they got you in front of them too, like to explain to them, like, this is the standards expectations. This is what we want out of you for the next 6 months. This is how you're going to graduate. This is how you're going to be successful in this academy and then in the line of duty. So that's a lot of added stress on there too. So like what's more stressful, adding in barbell work for individuals that have maybe never done it before, or coming in with so many injuries and things like that when they already have to like read textbooks and like do quiz, do all this other stuff that gets added on their plate. Like we can do all that stuff later, maybe when you're out of the academy or you've progressed past it. Let's make sure that you're in the best position possible to like graduate healthy and then have a career.
No doubt. And that's honestly, I feel like that's one of the best pieces of advice for any young coach starting out, let alone, tactical side, sports side, whatever. Because we have no more than a full-time strength coach and maybe two or three pure fitness trainers to assist for 30 people. So you put them in the weight room and you're asking them to do any type of first pull or a squat variation or whatever. I got 3 sets, maybe 4 sets of eyes on 30 individuals. And probably at least 15 to 20 of them have never done that before. No thanks. I don't want any part of that. It's the long game, like you said. I care more about making them a better version of themselves, not making them high end tier one operator or professional athlete, powerlifter, bodybuilder. We can worry about that later on down the road.
Yeah, I mean, keep it simple. Like less is always going to be more with them too. And I tell I tell a lot of the airmen that come in to work with me all the time, like that want to just keep pushing, pushing, pushing. Like it's great that you want to do that, but same to your point, like holding them back is better too. Like what I can break you off in one day and
Right.
I can ruin probably your career like pretty easily. I can make you hate training in like 5 minutes if I really
Yep.
want to, body weight as well. But is that really what's optimal, or are we trying to look at how we can stretch this out for the long game too? And that's the mark of I think of a good coach too, like to know when to throttle back and like make sure that you're making progress right at the cusp of like being a detriment too. So that's that's great, and it's cool to see like how the academy is structured and how you guys are like perfectly intertwined within it too. Like, and then you know your role too. Like you said, after those 12, 13 weeks, like they gotta start getting ready to be like a firefighter. Like that's your role. Like you kind of fade into the shadow until it's your time to come back, even though physical training is still important. It's just expressed differently and they got to do more skill-based stuff. So
Yeah.
kind of shifting gears a little bit, like now, what's training look like for you? Like, how are I mean, you've been
Oh
involved in
man.
sports all your life, football, obviously, like playing at the highest level, like playing at Virginia Tech as well, too. Like, there's no joke places to do all that stuff. And you're around all these different aspects of physical fitness and training. Like, what's it look like to you to like still stay involved and kind of cut your teeth daily as an with an active lifestyle?
Yeah, that it's very taxing on me mentally because, as you know too, that we all as coaches we're living in a weight room. The weight room is staring at me, and I'm doing all this other work, and I'm gassed. And there's times I'm looking at, it, I'm like, nope, I don't even want to touch you today. Like I want nothing to do with you. But I've really backed off like some traditional stuff. Lived off of anything that was a clean, a snatch, deadlifts. Like I love that stuff. And as I've gotten older, and I don't mean it necessarily chronologically, but just even physiologically, from some herniated discs to everything in between. I just want to be smart, right? I want to play the long ball game of it. So I still train pretty hard on Mondays and Wednesdays in the weight room. I still try to implement hang cleans and power cleans into my repertoire. And then I live off the pit shark, any type of belt squat machine, stay off my spine as best I can. And then I try to honestly, like, I think I said it over to you, but I try to still have that mindset of I want to be an asset in everything I do, physically, but also mentally. And part of that is with my guys and girls on both the PD and FT side, and then even my family, and friends. If I need to go lift weights, I want to be able to lift weights. It might not be, I'm one rep maxing anything and 3 to 4 times my body weight, but I know I can hit a couple of things that are 2 times my body weight. And I know I can still, do X amount of weight, but at the same time, I can go out and run 2 miles easy and not be absolutely gassed and have shin splints for, 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. And so Mondays and Wednesdays are a bit of a hybrid of everything. I mess around with Jason Brown's, hybrid conjugate stuff, which I love. Any of the high volume stuff that then transition into a little bit of the old school 5-3-1 that I absolutely love to death and always will. So I still get my fix in that area. And then, yeah, every now and then we throw in some challenge wads, but not often, like we just talked about. I don't want to just have a chaotic, I need to feel like I just died type of workout. And that's why I still kind of question myself as much as I love and respect Lieutenant Michael Murphy and all that, but it's like 41 years of age now. And I've done Murph for how many, like at least 10 to 12 years. When is it enough, right? Like I want to honor him, but do I need to do the full thing in a vest? I don't know. I go back and forth with that, but the caveat too is I still try to train with my crew, so my captains, my lieutenants, I want them to still get that feel of, being a firehouse, and we work out together. And so I let them bring to the table what we want to do for that day or that week. And then, as they transition out and they get promoted or they go back to the field, they still have, that mindset and that capability. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I started implementing jujitsu almost about 8-9 months ago. And it's through our police academy. So we have a bunch of black belts, brown belts, and purple belts on a lot of our fire and police side. And our SWAT team guys are the ones that got me into it. And they're like, dude, come over and come roll with us. I'm like, all right, man, cool. I'll get my ass kicked again. I'll be a student all over again in this endeavor. And I fell in love with it, man. Like the discipline of it, the community, I got to learn how to breathe while I was getting suffocated, and it's been really eye opening just in terms of the physical components of how much leaner I feel, how much more mobility I feel like I've ever had in my neck and my hips that I didn't have even as a high end football player, which, says a lot about, bigger, stronger isn't always the best, way to train as an athlete. But I feel like I'm a little bit more of a lethal weapon than I've ever been just because of this cross train hybrid mentality of everything that I've been implementing in my life. And again, a lot of it, I have to give credit to the people around me. And again, it's not just me doing my research and knowing what I know. It's them pushing me and saying, hey, man, just come try it. And me saying, hell yeah, let's go. And I think that's a big part of what we need to utilize as a strength coach, implementing the programming, but also implementing it for ourselves. Like, don't be afraid to step outside the box. You don't have to just deadlift 500 pounds all the time, go run. Running's good for you. You don't need to kill yourself with it. Maybe it's just a mile, maybe it's a run, walk, whatever, but try it, stay dangerous.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it too. Like, I mean, the ability to kind of say yes to everything. Like, I know hybrid athlete is getting a lot of flack or just like the term of it, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great way to put it too. Like, just you can you can be good at everything. You don't have to be like great at one thing. And there's a time and a place to be great at everything. If you're trying to push like for world records in powerlifting, if you're trying to be the best offensive lineman you could be, the best like goalkeeper you could possibly be. Like you're going to have to, it's unhealthy and you're going to have to sacrifice certain aspects
Yeah.
of performance and training in order to reach that objective because people that are good across the board usually aren't professional or like going to be known for anything. But when your job is on the line and like performance, like your livelihood, you need to be able to do these things like police being able to like handle like handcuffs and actually be able to like hand fight with people too. Like that's important. Firefighters being able to carry, like you said, 70, 100 plus pounds like on their back. The ability to do all these different things is very important. And then having a coach that can balance all these things is very important. It's cool to see you kind of get involved in it too. And like I I started jujitsu a little bit when I was back in California, and it took me another like 5 years to get back to it when I got back to Florida, just with timing and everything.
Yeah.
And the fact of like the matter of just relative body strength and looking at
Yeah.
someone that you're like, oh, I definitely outweigh them. And be like, oh man, he's definitely they're lean and
Yeah.
there's no wasted movement in what this person's doing. Like it's and they're mobile and they're freaky mobile too. Like it's different to like start to see different aspects of training and performance and then be able to steal bits and pieces of that and then bring it back to your program. You don't have to be the best at all those things, but to dial in like all those things that you want to add into a program for a new recruit class, new academy. Like it's awesome to be a student and like kind of a kook for something new for a day.
No doubt. And that's honestly like, I'm a little biased, obviously, but I really respect all strength coaches, but the strength coaches that have lived and breathed it to a degree. And, at the very least, immerse themselves in that culture, like learn the playbook a little bit or learn a little bit about the opponent you're about to play. Or, for us, that's, again, a blessing of my position, man. I can't tell you enough, but I get to shave my face and put, the mask on and go on air and do all the training, scenarios that the fireside does, do ride-alongs. I get to go on calls. I got to actually help patients and civilians with some of the calls that I was on. They allowed me to do that, and it was so eye-opening. It was so cool. And at the same time, I train with some of the TAC team. I get to go to the shoot house, do different scenarios out of the patrol car, and so jujitsu to me, and even the tactical first response yoga, doing stuff with the brothers and sisters and the people that I'm helping to train and doing it with them, whether I'm great at it or not. They see me there, they see me trying to do it, and then also just connecting with them. That's been, one of the biggest saving graces for, what to do or what not to do in terms of how we implement the program. Is the buy-in then is there, the respect is there. They know I know what I'm talking about, just even to a little bit of a degree, because I've gone on a call or I've gone to shoot or I've dealt with some of the stresses they deal with the gear that they're dealing with. And that has really helped me in my role. And to what you said, like just be able to walk the walk and talk the talk at the same time.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with that community, it's awesome that they afford you the opportunity to go out and do that because it's difficult some of those roles like logistically like and like just HIPAA, whatever
Yeah.
other kind of rules that are involved in it. But it's awesome that you can go out and experience it because that's the biggest form of buy-in. Like, I mean, talking to athletes and kind of learning the lingo of like what they're doing is great. And like having a respect for even a sport that like, okay, you don't like baseball as much as football, but learning just kind of the ins and outs of the games, asking questions with the guys in the bullpen, like that goes such a long way because it's what they love. They don't necessarily love the weight room like as much as we're gonna love it. And then going on ride-alongs and like just like asking like poignant questions and like just trying to get a further understanding. Like they eat that stuff up because that's their favorite thing to do. And
Right.
they're going to be so much more bought in and willing to do difficult things when you ask them in the weight room on a different day when you've like gone through and see what they do daily and have just a glimpse of like peek behind the curtain of what the day-to-day job looks like for them. And I think you said it too, like connection, camaraderie, culture, just communicating, like all that is best exampled over there. Training and like breaking bread. If
Yeah.
you can do those things like in those environments, like you are connecting the best way possible and you have the best chance of probably shifting the culture when you're a part of those things with that group of people.
Yeah, I agree, man. That's it's kind of that. It's not what you know. It's what how you present yourself and what you bring to the table in terms of your passion and your care. And I feel like that goes a long way as a coach. Yeah,
No doubt about it. Well, like any good training session, coach, we got to end the show with a
yeah.
finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions, and overtime at the end. But you can go rapid fire with them,
All
or
right,
you can expand on any of them. But you ready for the first one?
sure.
All right, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in the strength conditioning profession.
Man, pretty much anyone I've ever worked with, including Coach Gentry, who really cut my teeth on being a good athlete and a good coach. But Mike Hill, Jason Riddell, those guys are still the guys I call and ask for help and favors and guidance. And that has been the biggest influence in my life. Those three guys: Riddell, Gentry, and Mike Hill.
Okay, well I got 1A for you too, because who was your favorite football player or athlete growing up too?
Well, I have to say my dad, but second to him, I always loved John Lynch. And then, as I got older, Pat Tillman and Sean Taylor. I was a safety, so I was biased. I loved watching those guys hit people and just play the game the way they played it with passion and intensity.
Okay, yes, I wanted to see if it was still position kind of specific too for that guy.
Of course.
Okay. Hey, so when you're not coaching, you're not training, like you got some free time outside the weight room walls, what are some of your like favorite go-to hobbies to kind of reset and recharge?
Man, my wife and my daughter, like I love going playing in the creek, splashing around, fishing, catching crawfish, just being outside, and grounding on the ground without socks and shoes on and getting dirty and muddy. That's honestly my funnest and most favorite thing to do when I'm not working.
Okay. Hey, so I know the degree was sociology, like thought about military, got into coaching, like thought about going fire, and then you're still working with fire. But what might you be doing if you weren't coaching right now? Would it be one of those different things, or you got something else that like maybe was a dream career you're sitting on?
Honestly, I don't think it would have deviated too much from that. It was I lived and breathed sports, and then if it wasn't that, because of my grandfather, my uncle's cousins being an influence in the military, it was going to be military, and the second the 1B to that 1A with the military was police and fire. So if those hadn't worked out, I mean, I could see myself maybe going the route of like a teacher, PE teacher type of concept because again, I still love to help and educate people. So it's a good question though because I haven't really ever thought about that. That's huh. I don't know where I would be.
Hey,
Maybe in a ditch somewhere. Who knows?
you're in a good position right now. You don't got to shift. I don't think you got to shift gears anytime soon. Hey, so I don't know how it works at the firehouse or like at the police academy or anything like that, but if you get to be on the Ox and you got an ideal training day for yourself, like what's playing over the speakers and what's your favorite post-training meal look like?
Oh man, I'm a seasonal cat. So like summertime, I'm blasting hip hop and country, but I'm not playing country in the weight room. That's a no no to me. So I'm playing, probably some type of All That Remains, Hate Breeds, Trivium type of rock metal, or I'm flipping over to Biggie or Big X the Plug. Like I gotta have a little bit of the influence from my early days, and then post post workout meal is I'm a basics guy, man. Give me any type of protein, rice and veggies, and then obviously a protein shake. I'm in on it. Whey protein.
All right, there we go. Well, last one I got for you for overtime. Like, what is the most valuable piece of advice or your favorite quote or something that you've received from someone, and if you want to share from who?
Um, my favorite piece. I don't know. I have a lot of different quotes. One of them obviously would be my Socrates quote that Riddell always harped on me. But what a shame it is to not realize the potential of the human body, right? So I think at the end of the day, though, is a few people have said this, so I can't really state exactly who it was. But man, I'm going to do today what others won't, so I can do tomorrow what others can't, and I think I leaving it better than I found it is part of that legacy conversation, but also just being the best that I could be for my people, for my role, and then paying it forward with anybody else that steps into that role eventually, and helping to build out from within is how can I set up the next generation, the next strength coach, and the next me, hopefully to do better than I've ever done, but they at least have the foundation for it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's constant improvement all the time. That's what we're looking for too. And like just finding new ways to develop yourself as a coach and just find that like 1% to get better. And I mean, you're an influential person and you're in a position where everybody's kind of looking to you for guidance. And if you're doing that and you're preaching that, like there's 3,500 other people that are going to model that kind of behavior and go out. And then that's a force multiplier. And that's the mark of a good coach that can kind of take their good character traits and spin them like within the weight room and make sure that the rest of like whatever their athletes or tactical athletes, their population is going out to kind of live that same life too as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I'll just add one more because you kind of just jogged it into my brain. But the Nelson Mandela quote, it's, you either win or lose or win or learn, excuse me. There's no losing. You're learning from your mistakes and building off of that. And that's all I've ever done for the last 18 years is I've lost and learned a ton from all my experiences to win the way I've won. So it's pretty cool to kind of own that.
Yeah, that's definitely a good quote too. Like, yeah, learn as much as you can, fail as fast as you can, and
Yep.
keep pushing forward. So
No
awesome.
doubt.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on today. I know we could probably get going on a couple tangents and do this
Yeah.
all day, but we'll save that for a later date. For anybody that's got maybe follow-up questions for you, want to kind of take a peek behind what you're doing over there at Fairfax County with the departments that you're working with, or just kind of pick your brain a little bit more. Where can they follow? Where can they kind of get a hold of you as well?
Yeah, we've kind of revamped a few things, but like we're going. A lot of our programming is going to go through our Bridge Athletic app now. We used to post it on our Instagram and Facebook page, but we still have those pages. So if they want to see some of the stuff we do, and now that we start to revamp it with some of our, more influence friendly, however you want to call it, videos and whatnot, it's at WellFit Strength on Instagram, and then Wellness and Fitness of Fairfax County Public Safety on Facebook. In terms of getting a hold of me, it's just my county email address. I'm actually legally, my name is John. So John.Patten2 at fairfaxcounty.gov. But again, if you send me an email, I'll gladly send out my phone number and we can shoot the stuff and talk whatever we can. I'd love to help out and share whatever I can and hopefully steal some ideas or learn from anybody else.
Awesome. Well, like I said, it's been fun to kind of connect a little bit more and talk. So I appreciate it, Coach, and best of luck with this academy you got going and everything you guys are doing over there. It's been awesome to hear more about it.
I appreciate it, Coach. Thanks again for having me on. Hey, this is awesome. Thank you.
Anytime.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.